Hey guys, Nishquik here. So today we're back with another podcast. We haven't done a podcast in literally a year, and the last podcast guest I had is the person you can see right here in front of your faces right now, my good friend Shark. And Shark, you want to give a little introduction about yourself and some of the games you enjoy?
Hey guys, my name is Shark. I've been Nishant's friend for the past 5 or 6 years or so. And for those who haven't seen the last podcast, I'm a big PlayStation fan. I grew up on PlayStation. But recently, my buddy Nishant here is opening my eyes to some of the gems that Nintendo has been putting out over the past few decades.
Yeah, I'm trying.
And I'm pretty excited to play more games and be a better gamer.
Yep. That's what we're all trying to strive to become, be better gamers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so today we have an interesting topic for you guys. So today's topic is going to be our top 10 favorite boss battles with our honorable mentions. And not only we're going to be talking about our favorite boss battles, we're going to be talking about a little topic which has been on my mind recently. It's gameplay versus story. Which thing do we prefer in a game, and which do we think completes a game and makes it like a full package? Or is it both? Do both work in tandem to make a great gaming experience, or do we prefer one, kind of like that?
That are listening, any games that are like shoot and cover, sports, racing, or first-person shooters, a lot of those games don't have any boss battles, and they didn't make the list, but that doesn't mean, that we love playing those games.
Yeah, unless you consider like the final boss of NBA 2K's career to be like the best team ever, and you're like, oh man, how do I beat Michael Jordan? And Michael Jordan like does some like crazy stuff, and he like dunks on you every like 5 seconds.
Yeah, dude, my career is low-key, like you said, a role-playing game.
Yeah, dude, when someone described it to me, I was like, this is literally an RPG.
They have a freaking casino in the game. You can go and gamble your money in this casino.
That's so funny. But yeah, so I'm also wanting to suggest that after we talk about our number twos and move on to number one, we can talk about our honorable mentions.
Yeah, I only have one honorable mention.
Oh, okay. I have 6 honorable mentions. So
then you can list them all out, buddy.
Yeah. All right, so let's go. Shark, you want to start off with your number 10 favorite boss battle?
Number 10 is gonna be Devil May Cry 3. It's a personal childhood favorite game of mine, and I beat the game barely. And one of the most memorable boss battles in that game for me was Cerberus. It's a 3-headed dog that's basically all frozen up, and he's protecting the castle that you're trying to enter, and it's a great first boss, I would say.
Oh, it's a first boss. That's really cool.
I think it's a first or a second boss.
So you said that was Devil May Cry 3, right?
Devil May Cry 3, and for those that don't know, Devil May Cry 3 is actually a prequel to Devil May Cry 1 and 2. It's actually like the first in chronological order for the
Just
Devil
like
May
Metal
Cry
Gear
3.
Solid.
Yeah, exactly. Same installment, yeah. And what I found so cool about that game is that all the games that I played previously, if you're using a weapon, it does like damage the same to any villains that you're fighting. But when it comes to this game, each weapon has an impact on different types of enemies, and you can have variation of enemies, like a fire enemy, an ice enemy. And with this enemy, since it was an ice boss, I got to figure out a clever way. I was like, what if I use my fire swords? I had these swords that would turn ablaze. And I just had a much easier time defeating that boss after that clicked, and I felt like a genius, as a kid, and it was really a triumphant moment for me. to
Elemental weaknesses always triumph.
yeah, and like that game has a lot of good boss battles. Like there's this creepy character named the Jester. He's kind of like the Joker of the Devil May Cry, but with like supernatural elements. He was a fun fight, and obviously like your brother Virgil, he's like your cool twin. You don't know what he's up to, and when you meet up at the top of the castle, it's just an all-out epic fight. But I have to give it to Cerberus. It's my most fond memory of that game. And it was like me exploring the different combinations of weapons and guns you can use, because it's similar to Bloodborne.
Yeah.
Because Devil May Cry like incorporated the swords and the gun. Like you can only equip one sword and one gun at a time, cool. And you'd have to switch it through the menus. I cool. think. Yeah, but you can have, so like I think I fought him with those fire swords and like a rocket launcher.
Oh, nice.
And he has like a really cool ability that I discovered late, that you can ride your own rocket that you shot and fly around.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like Ant-Man riding Hawkeye's arrows.
Yeah. But you're a demon slayer and stuff, so it's kind of cooler.
Speaking of Devil May Cry, I was watching a video yesterday on like the best boss fights in like the decade, right? And you know what was number 1 in the decade?
Don't tell me.
I know this isn't gonna be on your list because you already have a Devil May Cry game on here, but his number 1 boss battle of the decade was Virgil from Devil May Cry 5.
Oh, I want to play that game. It runs at 120 FPS.
I think so, on PS5. And I actually recently got it on PC, so I'll see how well that runs on PC. I'm sure.
I gotta get that game, man. I gotta play it.
Yeah. All right, so
let's hear yours. What's your number 10?
Number 10 is interesting because you might have expected this game to be higher on the list. Okay. And even I expected it to be higher on the list, but like just moving things around, I had to like think about memories and like how long the game has sat with me. So like I'll preface by saying I didn't get into like the PS4 library until like last year, really, because that was my first full year with the PS5. And I played God of War from February to like March, or like no, like beginning of end of January to like end of February. So like took me like a month to beat it. And there were some amazing boss battles in that. And I thought, what's my favorite boss battle? The dragon was fun. The Thor's sons, Magni and Modi, were fun. But then I really had to give this number 10 spot to the final boss battle, which is Baldur / Freya. Also, disclaimer again, this video will definitely have spoilers for the games we're talking about. So
okay, thank God. Okay. I'm actually not gonna spoil some games just for you, because I know like there are some games that you want to play. Yeah. So I'm gonna try my best not to spoil.
I will dance around the spoilers, especially with the games that I know you want to play as well.
But if we spoil them, we've already given the disclaimer.
Yeah. This is mostly for the audience. Yeah. But yeah, so basically the final boss in God of War is like you do something within like the world serpent's belly, and then you get spit out. Like the world serpent spits you out in this area that you've already been in the game. And this area in the game is like this frozen land, and it's like the body of this giant like titan, and that giant titan's body becomes like this fortress or something. And then you like come back here and you're like, wait, why are we here? And then Freya comes, and then she realizes what you're about to do. You're about to kill her son. And she's like, no, you're not going to kill my son. And she revives the entire freaking giant. And the titan, like, you just look up and you're like, this whole, like, the ground is moving. And then you look up and then you see like this giant face like turned down at you, and you're like, oh God, what is about to happen? Yeah, and then you're literally fighting Baldur, like this really strong guy, on top of this giant titan, while his mother Freya tries to distract you with like these vines and stuff. And like the fight itself is a lot of fun, like against Baldur, because you're using both your Leviathan axe and your Blades of Chaos simultaneously. depending on which attacks he's using. So that was a lot of fun. And the fact that you're doing it on top of this giant titan is even more fun. And I think later on, even the World Serpent comes and like helps you out. So all of that was just a lot of fun to experience. Great finale to a great game.
I really hope that when you edit this, you can put like some of that gameplay footage.
Oh, I definitely will.
I would love to rewatch like this podcast with like the gameplay to like.
Oh yeah, that's definitely happening.
But how come you did not mention the opening fight with Baldur? Like that was like such a tone setter for the game.
That's very iconic, and that made me remember a lot of the God of War gameplay I used to watch in like high school and stuff. But like this was like that was like the tone setter, right? But everything in the game was just leading up to this one moment.
Yeah.
And like if you think about it, the first Baldur fight was just outside Kratos' house in the snow, right? This end fight was on top of like a giant that was moving around and trying to shake you off, and was being controlled by Freya, which was even cooler. So I just like the setting of the fight as well.
Sean, you have to play the original trilogy.
I will.
It has gems in there, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I definitely will. That's on my list. All right. So number 9 for you. What is number 9?
Number 9 for me is going to be something you probably never heard about before. It is Wolverine Origins.
I remember you kept talking about this game in college.
This game makes the movie so much better. Like it's one of those situations where the movie translates into the game better because they keep going from flashbacks when he was like a soldier in Africa and flashes it forward to his current state. And it has some of the craziest boss battle. But what takes number 1, you get to fight a freaking Sentinel. One of the X-Men Sentinels, like the earliest version of it. And you get to fight it on top of a tower and like in the middle of a canyon or something.
Yeah.
And that fight was insane because the gameplay for that Wolverine game, it gave you a lot of leaping capabilities. Where you can lunge at people, and it was like one of the core game mechanics. So combine that with fighting a Sentinel giant, where you slowly like break apart his armor and then climb him and completely take a giant down. Just was like one of the best Wolverine moments I've personally experienced. Wow. Yeah, it's like I've seen a lot of the X-Men movies. Hugh Jackman is like top 10 superheroes of all time, even top 5. But the best moment I've experienced for Wolverine was in that game. And it was that boss fight.
That's cool. Amazing. This was on a PS2?
It was actually, they made 2 versions of that game. The first one came out on the PS3, but they still released a PS2 version that I got before, because I didn't have a PS3 at the time. Yeah. And it was like the Walmart version of itself. It was so bad. Like it had none of the features, but you play the PS3 game with like that next gen like graphics at the time. It was amazing. Like the blood and gore and the graphics of like ripping your enemies apart.
I remember the Spider-Man games are like that too. Like either Amazing, I think it was Amazing Spider-Man. The PS2 version was crap, and then the PS3 version was like significantly better.
I just have never played a game in my life at that point where like, cause I told you like there's 2 different mechanics. There's the lunging and then there's the grabbing, and Wolverine has so many ways to like rip people apart, and that game explores every element of that. They don't give up. That's why I'm actually kind of excited for the new Insomniac.
Yeah.
Because I personally think like that's the gold standard for a Wolverine game. But anyways, I'm not gonna take too much time on that. Other honorable mentions for that video game, runner-ups. The runner-up is actually fighting yourself. There's a training simulation where you fight Wolverine as Wolverine, and they added a cool element in the game where you can do it as a PvP, where you can get a friend to like go in and fight each other.
It's Wolverine's mimic tier.
You remember in Logan where he had
Yeah.
to fight a
Yeah.
clone of himself?
Yeah. The
It,
experiment. Yeah.
it's literally had the same feel. And you also fight Deadpool in this
Oh,
game,
that's cool.
like the bad version of Deadpool, and you get to fight Bub or whatever his name is, the guy that got fat. You remember him?
Kind of.
He was
Yeah.
like he was like
Oh, is it
blonde.
Juggernaut?
No, I think they call him Blob. He's like, because
Blob.
he was like, and Wolverine's like, take it easy, Bub, and he's like, did you just call me Blob? And he was like, so then I think
That's
they
so
just
funny.
named
That's gonna be fun watching the video gameplay of that.
Yeah, you gotta add all that over.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
So
what's your number 9?
So number 9 is interesting. So I literally just beat this game like last week, and it's a game that turns 20 years old today. I mean, not today, this year, celebrating its 20th anniversary, and so many people have been trying to get me into this game, and it's Kingdom Hearts. And Kingdom Hearts, as some of you might know, it combines the worlds of Final Fantasy and Disney. So in the first Kingdom Hearts game, you visit worlds such as Wonderland from Alice in Wonderland, the jungle of Tarzan, Agrabah in Aladdin, Olympus in Hercules. That's really cool. You visit Hercules's kingdom. That's pretty awesome.
You get to see like Zeus and Poseidon.
No, the only Hercules characters you see are Hercules, Phil, and Hades.
But, from the cartoon. Okay.
Yeah, but what's cool about the Hercules world is you take part in the Olympus tournament in there, and you fight.
That sounds so fun.
Yeah.
I love that part of the movie.
Yeah, but it's a little different. It's like it's more of like the Kingdom Hearts version of that. But my favorite world in that game is an original world. It's not a Disney world. It's not a Final Fantasy world. It's called Hollow Bastion, and it's like this really like dark, eldritch, like foreboding castle, and you're approaching and you're like, yeah, this is like stuff's gonna get real over here. And basically the ruler of Hollow Bastion right now is Maleficent from A Sleeping Beauty, and you go through fighting some enemies, Maleficent, some other enemies, and eventually you get to the end. And one big part of this game is you have two friends, Rikku and Kairi, who are Sora's friends. And your goal in the game is to like find Rikku and Kairi again, because you've like been separated from them. But when you find Rikku earlier in the game, he's like sort of like turned to the dark side. So right now in Hollow Bastion, when you encounter him, he's like a completely different person, and you have to fight him like near the end of this level of Hollow Bastion. And it's basically like all the other fights in the game, basically you have Donald and Goofy to help you out, but in this fight you like they're not allowed to be part of it, and it's just you, Sora, with the Keyblade versus your best friend Rikku with the Keyblade, who is like turned to the dark side and completely succumbed with darkness. And it's a very, very tough fight because it's very quick. You started off just hacking and slashing Rikku, and then he starts parrying and he starts counterattacking. And then like when you like get him to like a little bit lower health, he starts like summoning all of these like magical things around you, like a big like flood of like magical light, and then he like zips all over the battlefield trying to like attack you. And like you have to like do like frame perfect dodges, just jump right in the air right at the right time before he attacks you. And there was one part which always got me. He would like make the whole stadium like dark and then zip all over the place, and then he would like say like it's over, and he would like go like this, and then like there would be like these waves of light that just come out in every direction, and if you don't jump and like glide at the right time, then you're like dead. Like, you're like automatically dead. And I was like fighting this boss at like 1 a.m. because I just really wanted to beat it, and it took me like so many tries, and I finally beat it. But yeah, basically Rikku at the end of Hollow Bastion, one of my favorite fights ever, because it was just fun having a one-on-one sword duel with someone you're so close to in the game.
Yep.
And it was a very
Yet it's number 9 on your list.
Yeah, yet it's number 9. So that explains how this
How the
list
rest
is
gonna
go. Yeah.
It's going up.
Yeah. So number 8 for you. Let's hear it.
All right. Number 8 is gonna have to be Spider-Man. And
2018.
2018 Spider-Man, that last title, and I have never felt more like Spider-Man when I fought Electro and Vulture at the same time.
that was good. That was good.
For me, that was the best like moment in the entire game because they really pushed your like capabilities to like swing around, like zip them up and like attack them, like pull yourself at the right time. And dude, like those villains are not necessarily like top tier Spider-Man villains, but they're so like Spider-Man. I don't know how to say it. Like,
and the versions you see in this game are really cool, very well designed. And this boss you're talking about, it took me a couple of tries. It was very difficult because they're so separated from each other. They're both flying, and you're trying to like go all over the place, and like
it's amazing.
Yeah,
and like you're like swinging in between them. And then like Electro tries to zap you and Vulture tries to attack you and you're like constantly dodging mid-air. It was
really keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, it was the best Spider-Man experience I've had. Like I'm going back to back, as you know, it's like best Wolverine experience, my best Spider-Man experience. I'm honestly like so excited to see what Insomniac does with both Wolverine and Spider-Man and their new games coming up.
I really want to see a good rogues gallery because we already know Venom and maybe Kraven the Hunter. So who else is going to be a part of this?
They did an amazing job with what they had in the first game.
Yeah.
You know, with Rhino and Shocker and Dr. Octavius.
I like the Rhino and Scorpion fight as well. That was really fun.
That was a great duo, but honestly, like this Electro and Vulture fight gave me like Spider-Man like 1 feels. Do you remember that game where you were like web swinging in the air? Like there were missions in that game where you would fight Sandman or Electro, but in my mind, those levels were like amazing. And I think what Insomniac did is like take like our biggest fantasies of what it looked like in our heads and actually put it into fruition.
Yeah.
I don't have a direct runner-up from Insomniac Spider-Man, but I do have one runner-up in the Spider-Man title in general, and that's gonna be from Spider-Man Edge of Time. You get to play as, and that's the final boss battle. You get to play as Miguel O'Hara, traveling back through time to save Peter, to save Peter's life, who is being attacked by this mysterious villain. Now, this is a huge spoiler for the game, but basically, Miguel O'Hara goes back in time because the villain also went back in time to rule, like, you know, New York and from the past. And that villain happens to be Peter Parker himself. He got money from Iron Man and started to fund his own like empire, and he became Iron Man's successor, and he made like himself this arachnid spider suit, and he was like so overpowered, and he had like a gun for hire at the time when he went back, and like villain Peter hired Anti-Venom to help him defeat young Peter and Miguel O'Hara. But as the game progresses, Miguel O'Hara wins over somehow Anti-Venom, and both you as Miguel O'Hara and Anti-Venom take on Peter with the Iron Spider suit.
Wow.
And it was epic.
That's
like,
really cool.
It wasn't like, it's like the gameplay itself wasn't as amazing as the current Spider-Man game, but it's just the setting was a great runner-up for that franchise.
That's really cool. I'm very excited to see the gameplay of that and what the dialogue is with evil Peter.
Dialogue was amazing. Like the reveal, like how like Peter revealed himself that he's from the future and he's the villain to Miguel. It was
does he go like You know who it is. It can't be anyone else. It is I, Peter Parker.
Avenge me!
Does he do the twirl in the chair and
He
you
was
like?
actually like in a hallway that's dark, and he emerges from the darkness.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And with that being said, what is your number 8, Nishant?
Okay, number 8 is from a little game I like to call Persona 5 Royal, and specifically Persona 5 Royal, not the original Persona 5. So I'll be vague about this because this is end game stuff. But
They have boss battles in Persona?
yeah, you definitely do have some interesting boss battles in Persona. But this boss is, let's see, the 7th boss in the game. And throughout the game, there is no like in the initial chapters of Persona 5, there's no one solid antagonist because it's like a episodic game where the villain you fight sort of changes throughout the course of the story. Eventually, the story leads up to this one guy who is running for prime minister of Japan, basically. And he's in Tokyo, and he's like, I'm gonna make this world a better place. And you and your high school friends kind of see through his BS, and you're like, this guy's got something up. And what's cool about Persona 5 is when you go into what's called the metaverse, and this is before the whole metaverse buzzword. Yeah, it has nothing to do with any of the Facebook meta stuff. You go into the metaverse and you enter the cognition of these villains, and they're called palaces. And what's cool about the palaces is the setting of the palace reflects the negative desires of that person. So, for example, one person who is like a plagiarist artist, his palace is a museum. Another one who is like this mafia lord of Tokyo, his palace is a bank. So basically, this politician's palace is a cruise ship, and you go outside the cruise ship, and the cruise ship is just like, Tokyo is flooded outside, and the cruise ship is just cruising through Tokyo, and like inside the cruise ship, it's all the elite people just like sitting, whining and dining, just having a good time, not a care in the world. They're like, this guy will lead us to like the great new century, like everything, right? And you eventually fight this guy and this politician in his shadow form. And when you fight him, you initially fight him in like this big courtroom, and you fight him, and his first phase is interesting because he's like this big regal king with like this huge crown on his head, and he's on top of this like giant lion statue, and the lion is like attacking you, and like you're attacking the lion and the politician. Eventually the second phase starts, and you've heard of like of course you've heard of this game, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, right?
Yeah.
I've heard that the final boss of that game is also another like big politician, and he like rips off his shirt and he's like muscular and like big bulging muscles. That's exactly what the second phase of this fight is. But instead of like an action like hack and slash, it's like a turn-based combat with this guy. And he's powerful, and he's hulking, and he's muscling. And what's cool about Persona 5 Royal is in Royal, Royal adds a lot of quality of life improvements to the game that make it a better game. It also adds new story. But another thing that Royal adds is it adds changes to the boss fights to make them more interesting and more dynamic. And the coolest thing that Royal does with the boss fights is in this boss fight. And it's cool because what happens is, like, in a usual boss fight in Persona 5, it's 4 people on your team. Like Joker, of course, your main character, and then 3 other party members you can choose out of like 7 party members. And what happens near the end of the second phase is the politician goes like, no, everyone else out or something. And then your 3 other party members get like thrown off the battlefield. And it's just you, Joker, versus this guy. And I won't say how, but you yourself as the protagonist have a history with this guy. So it makes it more personal that you're going one-on-one against him. And personally, when I fought this guy, I nearly lost. And my health went down to 0. But if I didn't have this one persona with this one persona trait that like revives you and gives you a second chance, I wouldn't have been able to beat the fight. But it was still a great fight. And one more great thing about this fight is one of the best songs in the entire game plays during this fight. And I was just waiting. I was like, when is the song gonna play? When is the song gonna play? When is it gonna play? And then the lead up to the fight, you hear the song and you're like, yes, here it is, finally. And it's one of my favorite songs in the entire game. And it really sets the stage for the amazing fight that is with this guy. So yeah, that's my number 8. The politician, I won't say his name, but the politician from Persona 5 Royal.
Awesome.
So,
yeah, I wanna try that game. I don't think I'll ever beat it, but the concept of going around the clock, as like you're simulating the day and you're going around with high school friends, that just sounds like a lot of fun.
It's really cool.
Right on.
But yeah, so number 7, let's go. Let's see what you have.
So my number 7 is Ghosts of Tsushima. And the reason why this game is above Spider-Man, Wolverine, and Devil May Cry is because this is where my games on that list start getting technical with the gameplay. Maybe with an exception or one or two, but I think that's where you get like quality gameplay from a game like from Ghost of Tsushima, with the different sword stances, the different fighting techniques. I think they really evolved like a fight, like where open world fighting games should be. And my favorite boss battle in that game is not necessarily a part of the story. It's actually a part of the side missions.
Oh yeah, some of the side missions did have really cool boss fights. Yeah.
I told you about that one.
Yeah.
It's called the Heavenly Strike.
Yeah, I remember this. Yeah.
I started playing the game and I said, I'm not gonna play the story. I'm gonna be good at this game first before I continue. I went across town. I was trying to improve my fighting, and I followed this one bird that took me to this side mission, and I just dove into this like storyline without knowing it. And basically, you fight a bunch of bandits that are in search of this technique called the Heavenly Strike. It's a sword slash that's so fast you can't even see it. It's faster than the blink of an eye. So you fight all these bandits in the search of that fighting technique, and you eventually go up across like this big hill or mountain, and you reach the top of it, and you see the master that teaches that move is dead, and the last student that learned it from him had killed him, and now you have to face that student who just learned that move and is on a rampage.
Yeah.
And that fight was amazing. You're on top
doesn't
of
it like
mountain.
rain and like the thunder comes down and everything? Yeah, I remember that.
It rains, the thunder comes down and starts igniting the grass, and the whole arena becomes a flame.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, Ghost of Tsushima has so many boss fights, like the Ronin assassins that are spread throughout the island.
Yeah.
But this one for me takes the cake with like the epicness that a game.
Yeah.
Especially, it's like my first impression of the game. Like I hadn't played the story, and that was my first experience. Yeah. Like it really stuck with me.
I remember I was like streaming the game to you through like our PlayStation party, and I was like looking through my side quests, and I was like, oh, a Heavenly Strike, let's see. And you were like, you need to do that side quest. And I was like,
it's the best one. It's the best one.
It was pretty cool, yeah. And that technique is also pretty cool. Yeah.
All right, what's your number 7?
What is my number 7? That is a good question. Let's see. Oh, this one's gonna be fun. Oh yes. So this is the first boss battle I get to talk about today that is from my childhood. Ooh, this is gonna be fun. So I don't know if you ever heard of this game. There is a game on the Nintendo DS, the original DS, called Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. So the Mario and Luigi games are an RPG series. It's a spin-off from the mainline Mario games. and it's basically you playing as Mario and Luigi simultaneously, and it's like a turn-based RPG game, and you still explore like these isometric worlds, and it's very, very interesting series. But Bowser's Inside Story, one of the best games I've played on DS. The writing is both very good and incredibly hilarious for like in terms of like Mario standards. Very, very funny. Very interesting characters, great gameplay with like the DS touchscreen and everything. Just a great experience overall. But another thing about that game is it has a very interesting story. First of all, it starts off with Bowser getting this ability to mega inhale everything. So he starts inhaling everything, and he basically swallows Mario and Luigi and Peach. So that's why it's called Bowser's Inside Story, because a lot of the game where you play as Mario and Luigi, you're playing it inside Bowser's body, and it's very cool. And then the other part of the game is you're playing as Bowser, but you're playing in the open world. Not in the open world, but in the overworld, like where like you're not in his body, obviously. But eventually the story gets more complicated, and this evil clown guy is the villain. His name is Fawful. He's trying to get this thing called the Dark Star. This Dark Star is a very corrupt, very dark, very powerful star. When you like kind of like fuse with it, you become like the most evil, most corrupt thing on the planet. You can like destroy anything and all that, right? So like the game takes a very dark turn eventually, and the final battle is amazing. So what happens is the Dark Star fuses with Fawful, and he makes a clone of Bowser, which is Dark Bowser. And you fight Dark Bowser, and Dark Bowser is in his full form, and he looks so cool. He's like a dark, edgy, gothic version of Bowser, right? And the music is great. The music is like nothing I've ever heard in a Mario game before. And in this fight,
I hope you play the music over this.
Yeah, I definitely will. It's so good. And you're using all the skills you've learned, and you start the fight as Bowser. You're using your punches, you're using your fire breath, you're using all of your special moves as well, because Bowser.
Wait, so you're fighting anti-Bowser with Bowser?
Yeah, Bowser's fighting his anti-self. The reason Dark Bowser is created, from what I remember, is the Dark Star creates a clone of Bowser and uses that clone to like create destruction all over the kingdom, right? So and you're using all your different skills, like your punches, your fire breath, and all your special abilities. All of your special abilities are like Bowser's minions, like the Goombas, your Magic Koopas, your Bob-ombs, your Koopa Troopas, and you have this like big dog that also helps you. You have to like scrub the dog, and he like destroys and like pounds on your enemies.
This sounds so silly.
Yeah, but it's great. It's great. And eventually what happens is the Dark Star comes out of Dark Bowser. And what you have to do is you have to inhale the Dark Star with your inhaling ability. It gets swallowed into Bowser, and then it goes inside Bowser's stomach. And the second part of the fight, you fight as Mario and Luigi fighting the Dark Star inside of Bowser's body. And you do more special skills, special things, like crazy attacks with your stars and your magic windows and all that.
This is your number 7?
Yeah. It's a really great fight and a very, very awesome part in the story. Music, gameplay, combat, everything wise, it was great.
That is shocking to me, because it sounds like a fan fiction of Mario.
Yeah, because what's cool about these Mario RPG games is the Mario mainline games are very traditional Mario. Peach gets kidnapped, you have to go find her.
These ones are like more experimental.
Yeah, these ones are more experimental. They go into the lore of the Mushroom Kingdom. They go into detail on like all the characters and like give them backstories, and not only that, but they have like really cool gameplay additions because they're RPGs. So like Mario RPG on the Super Nintendo had that, the Mario and Luigi series has that, and the Paper Mario series have that kind of charm to them.
Okay, you gotta show me the clips later, but thank you for sharing that one.
Yeah.
I am honestly like like interested, but I don't know if I think it's a number 7.
All right, so are we on number 6 for you?
Yes, number 6. And this is where I start to get into my favorite franchises right now. Number 6 is Metal Gear Solid, specifically Metal Gear Solid 1.
Oh, wow.
And we have been talking about this. You just beat that game.
Yeah.
And I am going to go with Gray Fox for my number 6 in my
Snake.
Dude,
that
Gray
ninja.
Fox. Okay, let me say something to all the non-Metal Gear players out there. This game, by all means, is not a fighting game. It's a sneaking around stealth game. Your character can barely throw a punch. He can hold weapons, yes.
He's very frail.
Very, very frail stealth. You're just a man facing a bunch of, superhumans and mutated people, and it's a crazy journey. But basically, your gameplay mechanics revolve around sneaking around, getting into areas that nobody can, and maybe shooting them. But hand-to-hand combat is not his thing.
Yeah.
So when you're put in this boss battle with Gray Fox, who's a cyber ninja, who only deals in hand-to-hand combat and weapons do not work on him, the game forces you to go into hand-to-hand combat.
And Gray Fox wants you to do that too. He's like, Snake, fight me. Like, he has this quote where he's like, oh, we shouldn't be burdened by these weapons. Fight me like a man or something. Fight me with your fists.
I'm not gonna get into the Metal Gear franchise as a whole, because it has beautiful writing, it has amazing character design. If whoever's watching, if you haven't checked that franchise out, just check it out. Play the original.
It's on GOG. If any of you guys have a decently powerful PC, you can handle it. Just get the GOG launcher, buy the game for $10. It's fun.
But yeah, when I was faced with that task, I was scared, excited. I didn't know what to do, and I just had to, struggle until I figure it out, and that makes it a great fight.
It was a tough fight for me too, because I didn't know what to do at first, and the thing that halted my progress is when he goes invisible.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have the thermal goggles then. I didn't have the thermal goggles for a Gray Fox and Psycho Mantis, so I had to try extra hard in those fights. So whenever I would see like the blurry image, I would just go, ah, and just start punching him.
Hideo Kojima is a genius in pushing the gameplay to its limits, and the way he we're gonna talk about this later, but the way he intertwines gameplay and storytelling elements is so good. And I'm just gonna drop these characters over here as runner-ups. Runner-up to Gray Fox is from the Metal Gear Solid 3. Actually, is the end.
Yeah.
He's that sniper, and I'm not gonna give away too much for the audience, but you can defeat this boss fight in so many ways.
Oh yeah.
You even go to the extent that Hideo Kojima included a secret way to defeat him before you even meet him in person.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just blown away by how Hideo thinks outside the box like that.
Yeah.
I have so many runner-ups for Metal Gear because the whole franchise is filled with amazing boss battles.
Yeah.
Psycho Mantis is another one
is good.
where when the game came out on the PS2, you had to switch controller ports for him to not read your mind and your controller inputs. But here's a villain I don't think you know much about. His name is The Sorrow. He's also in Metal Gear Solid 3.
Okay.
And basically, before you fight The Sorrow, basically how you fight him is that you have to go through a river, and your movement is slowed down, and The Sorrow keeps floating back as you approach him, and every time you take a step, he starts basically spawning in people that you've killed before, that moment in the game. So if you've killed 100 enemies before that boss fight, you're gonna face 100 enemies.
Oh wow.
Being slowly in that river until you reach the sorrow at the end and defeat him.
Wow.
But people that approach the game without killing anybody, that boss fight ends like this.
Oh.
Because he can't spawn anybody. You're a pure human being who hasn't killed anybody, so he has nothing on you, and he just
Wait, so all the enemies from the beginning of the game till that boss fight?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's like late in the game too.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a cool one. Yeah.
Right. So,
what is your number 6?
Number 6. Okay, this is a little interesting. So, number 6 is Malos from Xenoblade Chronicles 2: Torna the Golden Country. Not the base game, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, but the DLC, Torna the Golden Country, because it's like pretty much its own game. It took me like 15 hours to beat it on my first try. And basically...
Boss fight took you 15 hours?
No, the DLC. The DLC.
Oh, okay.
Essentially, Torna the Golden Country takes place 500 years before the events of base game Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, you hear a lot of stories about the Great Aegis War that took place 500 years prior to the game. And that's the reason why everyone is out to get the mysterious blade, Pyra/Mithra, because they feel that she is responsible for all the destruction and chaos that took place during the Aegis War. And she also blames herself for a lot of what she's done during that time. But basically, Torna the Golden Country is you trying to prevent the Aegis War, and then eventually the final boss is basically the Aegis War itself. You're basically playing like the beginning parts of the Aegis War, and then the rest is just like whatever else happens. But I mean, not necessarily, but yeah, you're basically playing not even the beginning, you're playing like the climax of the Aegis War. So basically the fight is against the most powerful and evil Aegis, who is Malos. And his name obviously means like bad or like malicious Malos, right? He himself is a fairly basic boss. You fight him with your like team of, I think there was 7 party members. You fight him with your 7 party members, doing chain attacks, causing elemental orbs to spin around so you can break them with chain attacks, whatever, right? But what's cool is in the gameplay of the combat of Xenoblade 2, you have like a party gauge on the top left. And that party gauge, when it fills up to 3 bars, you can execute a chain attack. But also, you can use it to revive your enemies. And if you revive an enemy, 1 bar depletes. But the gimmick in this boss fight is when you're fighting Malos on the ground, in the sky, Mithra and Malos's artifices, which are 2 giant mechs, are also like poking it out, right?
So it's like an epic fight is going in the background.
Yeah. But also, what's cool about this fight is most of it is happening on the ground, but you can like take charge of what happens in the sky too. So that party gauge on top, if it reaches max, you won't be able to execute a chain attack. But if you press the chain attack button, what will happen is Mithra's artifice will do some like crazy animation and use some like crazy attack on Malos's artifice and severely damage it. And it'll give your party a huge buff. But also, on the other side of the screen, on the top right, you can see Malos's party gauge as well. And it's just him, no other party members. So if he reaches to the 3 bars of the party gauge, he can do the same thing, and he can get a buff on himself and nullify your party. So it's a very like risk and reward kind of battle. And it's a very cool gameplay battle and a very cool story battle because of the ramifications it has. And what's really cool is Xenoblade Chronicles is a very great series, but it doesn't stand out with its boss fights that much. But this boss fight was a very big standout, and I loved it.
That's excellent. I knew it had boss fights, but I respect that you can find like a good hidden boss fight in a game like that. I can see how that's placed at number 6, but Bowser, like I have to see footage.
Yeah, it's a really cool fight.
All right, my number 5, it has to be And I know you're not gonna believe this, that it's that low on my list, but this is gonna be a Batman boss fight. But the fight that in all of the Batman like franchise, like from the Arkham trilogy and Arkham Origins, it has to be Killer Croc.
Oh, that one's good. In Arkham Asylum?
In Arkham, the fight is so simple. You have to move slowly across the boards in the sewer. And when
you have to get the pods, the poison ivy pods.
Yes, and when Killer Croc comes out to chase you down to eat you, you have to throw a well-timed batarang to hit his collar that shocks him and puts him back in the water.
Yeah.
And you have to creep it around in this maze of a sewer until you get out. Very simple fight, mechanically. But when I played this, I was in such horror.
Dude, yes. I played it. I was 14 years old, right? So, like, fairly, like, grown up, but still pretty young.
Yeah.
And I was like, my palms are sweating. Cause like
I was like, this is a superhero game. I know it's creepy in the asylum and all, but you have Joker running around. You're kind of throwing like your gadgets at people. It's like, it's superhero-y, but then you get in the sewers and man, that Killer Croc boss fight was straight out of the comic books. It felt so nightmarish. It felt scarier than all of the Scarecrow missions.
Yeah, it was really cool. And there was like no music. There's no music except for the water droplets in your footsteps. And then Killer Croc just comes out of the water and then the music like swells up and you're like, ah!
It's insane. It's insane. And I played it in a dark room at the time. Enhanced my experience tenfold.
Yeah.
Anyways, runner-ups for Batman Arkham games has to be Solomon Grundy. I was debating on putting him instead of Killer Croc, but the fight where you drop down underneath the iceberg lounge to fight him, a myth of a character, was pretty surreal.
Yeah.
Also,
Ra's al Ghul was fun.
Yes, Ra's al Ghul. When you go on that trip and you fight so many versions of him, Clayface's boss fight
was good, very fun.
Was very fun and creative.
And then Deathstroke in Origins was fun too.
Yes, thank you for bringing that one up. Yeah, that one was definitely a great one. But yeah, that's my number 5. What is your number 5, Nishant?
All right, my number 5, and you kind of guessed this yesterday, and you were correct.
I did.
Yep, it is Father Gascoigne from Bloodborne.
Oh, I knew it. I knew it.
Out of all the bosses I've fought in Bloodborne, Father Gascoigne is my favorite.
I know you just love that boss fight.
It's so much fun. It's so much fun.
Yeah,
and
man.
It's so great because, I mean, Father Gascoigne is technically the first boss because Cleric Beast is optional. But Cleric Beast, you naturally find him. So I consider Cleric Beast to be the first boss of the game, the first major encounter. And then you beat Cleric Beast, and you're like, the next boss is going to be some big hulking beast like Cleric Beast, right? No. It's a guy who's literally like the same size as you. And he's also a hunter just like you. And you go into this fight and he's got a hunter axe. Maybe you chose the hunter axe too. He's got a gun and he's literally the same guy as you. And he's like moving around super fast. And he's like slashing at you with the axe. I don't want to hit my PS5. It's like right here. Yeah. He's like slashing at you with the axe. He's like shooting the guns at you, and like, the gun, he like shoots you in the face sometimes, but then he does this thing where he like drags the gun on the ground and he like repeatedly shoots it and then eventually hits you in the face. That's a really cool attack. And what's cool about this fight is you have to use the parry system very well. Right when he's about to like hit you with the swing, just shoot him, he goes down, and then you can get a really nice visceral attack in, get some good damage off of him. That's one of the like really good ways to get some damage off of him. And of course, like when he attacks you, you retaliate to get some health back. So it's a really well-designed fight. And of course, later on in the fight, in the second half, he turns into like a beast. And then you have to fight that beast as well. But what's cool is if you get the music box from his daughter and play the music box during that beast form, he will remember his old self, and he'll like come to his senses, and he'll be like, oh, I remember that song. But then it's sad because you can go behind him, charge up your attack, unleash that attack, get a visceral attack, get some decent damage off him, and he's as good as dead. Very fun fight, very, very high octane, very fast, very like intense. Just loved it.
It's in a cemetery, right?
It's in the cemetery, yeah. It's in the Odin cemetery, yeah.
Yeah.
Very fun fight. I don't know if you fought him yet when we were playing.
I did, and I kept dying. I did not persevere. I know you stayed up that night until you beat him again.
Yeah, for those watching at home, if you go on my Twitch profile, I have a highlight where I fought him, and it's funny because that highlight is me fighting Father Gascoigne, and Shark is in the background just talking about how much he loves Arkham City. And then the end, I'm like, dude, Shark, I beat the boss, and he was like, yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, dude, it was
great.
I enjoyed co-streaming with you. It was a lot of fun.
That was a fun night. Yeah. All right. So number 4.
Number 4 is honestly like an underdog on my list. This is a game that's mainly made for the gamer to play through boss fights exclusively.
Oh.
This game is called Furi. It's an
Furi
game. Yes, Furi with an I. Furi. And this game is exclusively revolving around boss fights. You start off as this prisoner, and your prison is basically 9 floating platforms above Earth. That's the prison that they designed for you because you're such a dangerous person, apparently. And the story like slowly like reveals itself as you progress through these different platforms, and you get to face really awesome bosses through that game. The game has very simple mechanics. You have your sword that you can slash with. You have your automatic laser gun you constantly shoot with. And with a combination of dashing and dodging, the game can get really complex with those simple mechanics and what your enemies do. Now, out of all of the enemies I faced, there is one called the Edge. And by the way, all of them start with the something, like the song, the Guardian, and this one, his name is the Edge. And basically, he's basically the same version of you, just like your Bloodborne boss. And he is you on steroids with a bigger sword, with a bigger gun. And you have to, I don't think he carries a gun, but he is quicker than you, he's stronger than you, and usually he can one-hit kill you. So this was my favorite because the game was always on edge. You, like, no pun intended, but you had to perfectly parry every hit he does. You have to space yourself right, and it has 3 different stages to it too. And I mean, like, I can't do it justice without you putting footage over this.
I'm really interested in this game now. What's it on, PS4?
I got it for free when they put it on the PSN Plus games. I think it was around 2016 or something.
Okay.
It was like one of the best PlayStation Plus free games ever. And I had like the very first boss fight in that game, the Guardian or the Gatekeeper, he's my runner-up. But there's also a boss fight because like the boss fights progressively get harder until you reach the last boss fight, which is ridiculously easy, and her name is The Beat. And I think the reason why they made the last boss so easy is so that the character arc for the main character, you're like going through these really tough guys or girls progressively, and after you've beat like potentially like the best like warrior Earth can provide, you're facing the most human boss, which is the easiest, which is like basically testing your humanity rather than your fighting skills. And
that's cool. I'll check it out.
Yeah, that's my number 4. Very great game.
Nice. You made me very interested in this now.
Yeah. So what is your number 4?
My number 4 is yes, I remember. Yeah. My number 4 is a boss from Super Smash Bros. Brawl. So this is the third Smash Bros. Game that came out in 2008 on the Wii. And Brawl had a story mode, and it's a really cool story mode. The Subspace Emissary, that's what the story is called. It's bringing all these Nintendo characters together, and of course Snake is in there too. Snake and Sonic are in there too, and they have a very cool story to play. Snake more so than Sonic. But you go through these worlds, you like platform, kind of like a 2D platformer, but still like beat up certain enemies from these games.
Kind of like Mario almost.
Yeah, Mario, but like Mario if it had like beat 'em up combat stuff. Yeah. And so I don't want to go into the whole story of this game because it's pretty complex. Essentially, there are these things that are turning everyone into statues. And you're like, why is everyone turning into statues? And that's really sad. And you find out that the god of Subspace Emissary is turning everyone to statues. And it's this guy named Tabuu. Tabuu is this, like, I don't even know how to describe him. He's like a blue, transparent man who's like, his body looks like he basically looks like Dr. Manhattan, but he has like butterfly wings. So he's like this ever-present, frightening god. And what happens is like whenever he like opens up his wings, destruction happens, everyone turns into trophies and they die and stuff, right? So like he's the final boss. And what I love about this game so much, or like what I love about this boss so much, is it takes me back to fourth grade when I was 9 years old, going to school and hearing everyone be like, hey guys, I beat Tabuu and he was so hard, but I beat him with this character. And I'm like, oh god, dude, Tabuu is gonna be so hard. I am not ready for this. I'm not ready for this at all. And like, I didn't like, this is back before like I would actively go on the internet and stuff. So I was like thinking in my head, I was like, how does this guy look like? What does he look like? What does he do? So I eventually get to Tabuu and I fight him and I keep losing. And finally, eventually I beat him with Sonic. And I was like, yes, I beat this guy. And it was like my first experience fighting a very difficult boss and beating him. So that holds a special place in my heart. So number 4 is Tabuu from Super Smash Bros.
All right, number 3 for me is something that's kind of out of left field on this list. It's Star Wars Episode 3 on the PlayStation 2.
Oh, okay.
And you already know what it is.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan versus Anakin on Mustafar. I think it's the best moment in all of Star Wars. That fight between the master, the student, how he becomes Darth Vader. That's like the best fight scene, in my opinion, in the whole Star Wars saga.
Yeah.
And for you to experience that in a video game that's very true to the movie was so surreal.
Who do you play as? Do you play as Anakin or Obi-Wan?
So this is what's really cool about the game. The game lets you main both Obi-Wan and Anakin throughout the entire story. You play, like when you start off the game and you're in Grievous's ship, you play sections on that ship with Anakin and sections as Obi-Wan. Okay. And each character has their skill tree which they can evolve their own skills and such and their combos. When you're playing as 2 characters throughout the entire game and you reach the end of it, and now you know that the story is going to lead up where Obi-Wan is going to fight Anakin. You're like, who am I going to play as? And then the game ultimately goes to Obi-Wan, and as a kid, I just loved Anakin. I thought, even if he turns bad as Darth Vader, I loved it. I don't want him to lose that fight. But I was like, oh, the game is lame. They're sticking to the movie. They're not giving me the option to at least choose Anakin. They're having me fight as Obi-Wan. Guess what? You fight as Obi-Wan, the fight is extremely hard. It's like basically like some elements of Ghost of Tsushima exist where you have to parry and such. The fighting stances are non-existent, but it's a very difficult fight. He's the most difficult boss in the entire game. But you eventually reach the area by the lava river and you beat Anakin. And the story progresses, as we all know it. He becomes Darth Vader. Obi-Wan goes to look over Luke and Leia. But here's the interesting thing about the game. After the credits end, they give you the option to replay the mission as Anakin.
Nice.
And then you fight Obi-Wan as the boss, who is equally as hard, by the way.
Oh.
And the game takes the liberty, because it's LucasArts. At the time the game was made by LucasArts. The game takes the liberty in exploring the after events if Anakin becomes Darth Vader after killing Obi-Wan, without the scars, without anything, and without.
Wow.
So he becomes Darth Vader still, but in his natural form. And
wow.
I just found that amazing, like an alternate storyline. Like
that's really cool.
Yeah,
it's cool that they went out of their way to add that into the game.
It's amazing. It's amazing, and I think there's a bonus level on Mustafar where you can play as just Anakin.
You know what's kind of sad is I rented this exact same game for the PS2, Star Wars Episode 3. I rented it, but I didn't get far enough into it to experience all these amazing boss fights.
You're missing out. And they have amazing gems in the game. Like they know, for example, like the fight between Yoda and Count Dooku in Episode 2. They know like that's like a fan favorite fight in that movie. And if you don't know this, like there is no Episode 1 and Episode 2 video games. There's only Episode 3. They didn't make the two previous ones. So since they know that there's fan favorite moments, they actually included Yoda as a playable character where you can fight Count Dooku.
Nice.
in that little like Jedi hut. Now here's my biggest shout out to this game. Like this game introduced PvP like Mortal Kombat Tekken like, where you get to pick your favorite character and you can play against another person, and you can be like Mace Windu, you can be Darth Vader, like actual Darth Vader from the future, and you have like a roster of characters and you get to fight each other like Ghost of Tsushima style.
Kind of like what is it kind of like what Battlefront 2 did? But
no, way better. It's
okay.
It's a well-oiled like fighting game, but it's not like it's not 2D. Like you can roam around a little bit, but you're always locked on your enemy, and it's really cool when you, for example, if you're playing as Palpatine and somebody's playing as a Force user, and if you do the electricity on them, they can force it back at you. And I don't know, it had really cool like fighting, like, cause as a kid I had a lightsaber, and when I meet another kid with a lightsaber, we try to like fan duel and pretend that we're Jedis. But this game was the first game that introduced that in a very holistic way.
Yeah.
Where it's not like a gimmick in a Battlefront game, like it's an actual duel, you know?
All right, so that was number 3 for you, right?
Yeah, what is your number 3?
Number 3, we already talked about this one, so I'll go through it very quickly. It's Mr. Freeze in Batman Arkham City.
My God! You have Mr. Freeze as your number 3?
Yeah, and it's so cool because we both have a friend in a group chat, and I'm gonna shout him out. His name is Pranav, and back in 2011 when the game came out, Pranav would come to me and be like, "Dude, Mr. Freeze is so hard. I can't beat him." And I'm like, really interesting. Let me get to that part in the game and let me see what's so hard about it. And then what's cool, like the battle starts really like in a really awesome way. He's like, "You will bring me Nora, Batman, or you will." And then the mask comes on. He's like, "Die!" And then he like shoots you with the ice.
That's a good impression. Yeah.
And then he like shoots you with the ice, and then you like call Oracle, and he's like, "Oracle, Freeze is attacking me. What do I do?" And then she's like, "Oh, I'm going into your back computer and showing you all the things that you can do to take down Freeze." And here's the cool thing. In the PS3 version of the game, you can open up your pause menu and you can see all of the ways that you can attack Freeze. And there was like 15, 20 different ways you can attack him. I'm like, whoa, I do have to do all of this? But then I like looked at some of them. I'm like, okay, some of these seem simple, but then some of them seem like really fun to do. So I tried to go the hard way and like do all the difficult ones. And when I played again in the PS4 version, they to my knowledge, they don't show the back computer and like all the things you can do.
They don't. No.
Yeah, which is kind of good because you have to figure it out on your own now. So like what I remember doing is I remember using the remote electric charge to like get him with the generators, and then I used the explosive gel to blow up the wall, and then there were some other really cool other ways I got him. Like of course there was like the glide kick, and then the silent takedown, and the
thing about the
takedown.
glide kick is that he freezes the air and you can't glide anymore.
Yeah, and yeah, the whole great thing about that fight is you can't use the same move a second time because he's like figured you out now, so he can like counterattack what you've done in the past. So
my favorite was the over the ledge takedown where he like where he like holds him up with his legs, and I just found that pretty creative.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, over the ledge was really cool. Another one, I think, I don't remember if you get the line launcher then. I think you do. If you get the line launcher takedown, you can go straight at him, kick him in the face, take him down, and attack him. So
yeah, I'm kind of like I love the fight, like I told you, and I'm not knocking on you or Pranav for enjoying it. It's just for me, I had already like when I saw the list, I was like, bet, like I know like 10 out of those 20 things, I can do them. And the fight just ended quickly for me. I didn't really struggle that much with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a great number 3. I'm so happy that it's kind of odd that you have your Batman boss fight higher than mine. When I'm a more bigger Batman.
Yeah, because I just like that fight gameplay wise, because most of the fights in all these games are combat focused. This is the first kind of stealth based fight.
Very similar to a Metal Gear boss fight.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. All right, so number 2 for you.
All right, number 2, we're in the end zone. This one is also another out of left field one, okay? This is gonna be, my number 2 is gonna be The Matrix Path of Neo.
Nice.
And my favorite boss fight in that game is the opening battle before the game even starts. Basically, let me just preface to everybody that this game covers the entire trilogy, and the Wachowski siblings or brothers at the time took the liberty, just like George Lucas did with Episode 3, to include an alternative ending. The Wachowskis directed additional scenes and additional parts to the trilogy that they wanted to include but cut out. And basically the game covers everything Matrix related. But what I love the most about the game is the opening boss fight. They basically throw the gamer who has no idea how to play the game in the very famous lobby shootout scene. Remember that scene from the first Matrix? So you're thrown in there as Neo with the shades, with the coat, and you basically have to fight through like all the enemies that exist in the game. You start off with a single policeman, then you go through a SWAT team, and then you go all the way through every single boss fight. You go through the Asian guy that can walk on the walls. You go through the agents, and then you reach the final boss.
All at the beginning of the game?
Like, yeah, if you're good and you can beat like each wave, they'll throw at you the next Matrix wave. So think of every single foe Neo has faced in the entire trilogy, and you fight all of them wave by wave in that opening.
Wow.
Yeah, and basically based on your performance, like let's say you died after beating the SWAT team, they're gonna be like, okay, you're pretty inexperienced, you only beat 2 waves, we recommend easy mode for you.
Oh, okay.
And if you reach like
Interesting.
halfway through the middle and you beat like the French, like Mr. like I forget his name, the French guy in the castle, he has like his minions with like swords and guns. If you beat them and you die after them, they're gonna be like, okay, we recommend medium. And there's like four skills. There's like easy, medium, hard, and then there's an even harder difficulty called the chosen. And basically, you get the chosen one difficulty if you beat all the waves up until Mr. Smith, and you beat Smith at the end. And then you get to start the game. By the way, like
That's
this,
a very interesting way to gauge the player's skills.
I'm so obsessed with that opening because it's every Matrix's fan's wet dream to have everything in that lobby scene. It's so perfect, and the game itself is just so true to the trilogy, and it adds more. Everything is perfect. That game is top 5 games for me of all time.
That's your number 2.
That's my number 2, and I can't wait to say my honorable mention, my number 1, because my number 1 is one hell of a franchise packed with amazing boss battles, and I think you kind of know what it is, but I'll tell you after you tell me your number 2.
Oh yeah, I think I basically know what it is. So, number 2 is interesting. It's another game you wouldn't expect to have boss battles, but if you really think about it, it's chock full of boss battles. It is Pokemon, specifically Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. Those are the first ever Pokemon games I owned. I got them when I was 8 for Christmas, along with a Nintendo DS. I didn't beat Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green till like 2 or 3 years later, because back then I wasn't like the smartest gamer, you could say. I would make very silly mistakes. I would not know how to like progress through certain points. I would hit roadblocks and just not be able to move forward. And just that frustration make me want to quit the game. But eventually I went back to, like, we'd moved to Houston, and then I went back to Vancouver and visited some of my friends, and I was like, hey, I still haven't beaten Pokemon Fire Red, but I'm on the Elite Four, and they're like, hey, we gotta get you to beat it. So Fire Red and Leaf Green, you defeat all 8 gyms, get 8 badges, go to Indigo Plateau, power through Victory Road, beat the Elite Four. You have one final thing ahead of you. The last Elite Four member, Lance, says you have one final battle ahead of you. It's the Pokemon League champion. This person just came here recently to claim the title of Pokemon League champion, and now it's your turn to defeat them and become the champion of the Kanto region. So you come up the stairs and you eventually reach the room of the champion, and you see it's your rival. And your rival, his name is, like, his canonical name is Blue, and your name is Red. And Blue has been a bully to you the entire game. He's been saying, oh, you're not as good as me. I'm so much better than you. My grandpa, like, Professor Oak is his grandfather. So he's like, oh, I'm so good. My grandpa knows I can do this. I'll show my family that I can be number 1. He's just putting you down the entire game. Just being mean and, like, condescending. And he's like, look, I am now Pokemon League champion. And if you want to prove to me that you are the best that there ever was, you have to beat me. And his team is powerful. Powerhouse of a team. With, like, so many crazy Pokemon out there.
Who did he have? Who did he have on his
He had,
team?
so I chose Charizard, so he had Blastoise. Blastoise is one, Pidgeot was another, Executor, Rhydon, I think? He might have had Rhydon. He had, Arcanine. He had...
How many can you enter a fight with?
6. Six is a max team of Pokemon. And he had a very powerful team, and it was really tough getting this guy's team down. He had a Nidoqueen as well, I think. He had a Nidoqueen. So, like, all these really, really powerful Pokemon. But I eventually powered through. I powered through with my, like, childhood friend from Vancouver. And this boss is so high because I consider Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green to be the first video game I beat like the story to completion, I think. Because like a lot of other games, I would just like put them aside and like come back to them
did
later.
That quite a bit as a kid as well.
Yeah. So like this is the first game that I remember like seeing the credits roll, and I'm like, oh, games have like credits like movies? What? That's so dumb.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my number 2, Champion Blue from Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. All right, so Shark, you want to hit me up with your honorable mentions?
All right, I'm gonna do this back to back. I'm gonna give you my honorable mention, and then I'm gonna give you my number 1 boss battle of all time, in my opinion. My honorable mention is gonna be Donkey Kong, and we're fighting the villain, Donkey Kong.
In the original Donkey Kong arcade?
Original arcade Donkey
That's
Kong.
a fantastic pick.
I'm telling you, this is the OG of boss battles. This is the game designed around the boss battle. You have to get up there, save the princess, defeat the big bad monkey. And I have not actually, I've played it a while ago, but I have never beaten this game until this year when I went to an arcade.
Was it the Cidercade we went to?
I think so, yeah. I think when we went together as a group, that's the day I beat Donkey Kong. Beating the first level in Donkey Kong was so satisfying. It's just like beating that impossible, those ramps that are angled with the barrels coming down, and then you finally beat it. There's a huge sense of accomplishment that I just do not get from the games that I play these days. Needless to say, it is an honorable mention. So
Cool.
The game's on.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you saw this video, but have you seen my video on my channel titled my 10 favorite video game moments?
I think I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Refresh my memory with which part you're talking.
Yeah. So basically, one of the memories, the moments in that game is from Super Mario Odyssey, and Super Mario Odyssey has this part in the game where what you do is like you save, like you go to this place called New Donk City, and it's like literally New York, but Mario New York.
Mario New York.
Yeah, you interact with humans and you like do stuff in New York, and the mayor is Pauline from Donkey Kong. The woman you're trying to save is the mayor, Pauline, in New Donk City. And eventually,
it was Peach.
No, it's Pauline in Donkey Kong. Peach is only introduced in Super Mario Brothers on the NES. And then eventually you save New Donk City, and then Pauline throws a festival for you, right? And this festival is like, you're like over here on this like platform, and the festival is happening over here on the stage, and Pauline is singing a really awesome song, and like the whole band is playing and the audience is cheering. They're like, Mario, yeah, they're cheering for Mario, and you have to like go through this pipe and like get onto the other side, right? But when you go into the pipe,
because you're a plumber, you can go through the pipe.
You know what happens when you go through the pipe? You play a level of Donkey Kong.
You're joking.
Yeah, and it's like, this game came out in 2017. Donkey Kong came out in like 1980 or whenever it came out, right? And that whole New Donk City Festival is literally a celebration of everything that Mario means for gaming. You're going through that Donkey Kong level in a modern game, and the lyrics for that song are very well written. It's literally like a celebration song for what Mario is. And it's one of my favorite gaming moments of all time.
You gotta put a link to that song below in your video description.
I will. Yeah. It's one of my favorite video game moments of all time. Such a great moment. But yeah, anyways, continue on to your number 1.
My number 1 boss battle is gonna come from the original God of War franchise trilogy. You guessed it? You knew that was coming?
I knew it was gonna be from God of War. But I don't know which fight it is.
I appreciate what the new God of War has done for gaming, and I platinumed that game. I enjoyed every second of it. But the new God of War, in my humble opinion, I know you have the Baldur fight on your top 10 list. In my humble opinion, it does not even come close to the boss battles in the original trilogy. And that's why I emphasize you should play the original trilogy even more so. Now, there's no better choice in that original trilogy other than the last person you fight, Zeus himself, the god of thunder. You go through different platforms beating each other to a pulp.
Yeah.
The amount of anger that has been built up in Kratos over 3 installments of games has finally come in that last moment to be released completely onto his father, Zeus. And you can just let loose with all the weapons you've accumulated, all the powers you've gained, and you're fighting this unstoppable force. And it's such an amazing feeling of accomplishment when you reach the end and you finally slayed the god of gods. And for me, that's just pinnacle boss fight. That's the pinnacle of boss fight. It's how they did it in God.
Yeah.
Now, given that Zeus is at the pinnacle of that boss fight, if I had made a top 10 list without limiting my list to a franchise in each slot, God of War could have probably taken 8 of those my top 10. Like, it just doesn't end. Like, Hercules has an insane fight.
Poseidon looked cool too. Poseidon
is a great way to open that fight. You're fighting Poseidon while you're on top of Gaia, who's the titan of the earth.
And then Kronos was cool too. I saw the footage of Kronos.
Oh my god, Kronos' boss fight is insane. You're fighting a titan. You're as big as his nail.
Yeah.
Like, when you're standing, you're fighting his, like, you're as big as his nail, literally. But I'd have to say, like, a runner-up to Zeus's boss fight has to come from God of War 2 when you're fighting the Sisters of Fate.
Oh yeah.
I already told you that it has, like, a really good moment in there, and it has to do with time travel. And I'm not going to explain to you how that works in the boss fight, but time travel is incorporated in that boss fight, and
that's
it's
cool.
Something completely unexpected in a God of War game, and it just works because the Sisters of Fate, you know, they deal with people's lives, and they can cut the string that represents a person's life, and they have all these magical things, and when you fight them, you get to have a very smart level design based off of these characters' tools.
Yeah.
It was just, it's an amazing franchise. Like, just like Furi, like I told you, the indie game where it's just 9 boss battles. God of War is basically that, but on a much more epic, grander scale. It's amazing. God of War franchise is insane, and I really can't wait to see what they do with the next one.
Yeah, Ragnarok is shaping up to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyways, that is enough from me. Let me hear what you got.
So your list is done. So I have 6 honorable mentions. I'll go through them real quick. So here are my honorable mentions. Here are 2 from Metal Gear Solid 1. Gray Fox and Sniper Wolf. Unfortunately, they didn't make it on the list, but there are very intense moments where my palms were sweaty and I was very, like, anxious of how I was going to get past these guys, and it was a lot of fun. Bowser from Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. Those fights are really cool because you're fighting on a spherical planet, and Bowser is huge. He grew to, like, this massive size, and he comes in with his big fist, and he, like, pounds down on the planet, and, like, the planet, like, sends off a shockwave. And then Bowser's, like, flying, and he has, like, fire breath, and he's, like, breathing it all over the place. Really cool fight. And here are 3 from The Legend of Zelda. Koloktos from Skyward Sword. Arguably one of the best designed Zelda bosses ever.
I'm kind of shook you have not put Zelda as, like...
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay.
Because Galactus he nearly made it on the list, but he didn't for one reason, and you'll see why. Galactus is a very cool fight. I don't have enough time to talk about it right now. I'll probably have footage in the background, but I'll send specifically you the clip of that fight, because wow, the way they've done that fight is genius. Got from Majora's Mask, another genius level fight, very well designed. They absolutely ruined it in the remake. So shout out to anyone, PSA, if you ever want to play Majora's Mask, play the N64 version. Whatever way you can do to play the N64 version, play that. Don't play the remake. And the third Zelda honorable mention is Bongo Bongo. Another very cool boss. Not as gimmickly cool, I just like his design. Because he's like a demon with like a severed head, basically. Who has like giant hands, and he's like banging on this drum. And the battlefield is the drum that he's playing on. So very, very, very cool fight. Number 1.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Also another final boss. And it's a final boss that I actually beat like this week, but I originally beat it back in 2011, 2012. It is Demise from The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. The final boss of The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. And I'm going to be pretty vague here because Demise's significance reverberates the entire series. But basically, the whole point of the villains of the game of Skyward Sword are to revive this guy Demise. Eventually, long story short, they succeed. And Demise is like this demon king who has been torturing and like laying waste to Hyrule for so long before he even became Hyrule. And he's been trying to take the Triforce for himself to eventually just lay waste throughout the entire world. Because he is the demon king. He is the embodiment of all evil. When he comes out and he's resurrected, he has some very interesting lines. I was trying to look up those lines because I don't feel like watching the entire video of the fight again. But he basically tells you that he's like, why do you humans cling to hope? Why do you humans cling to your false goddess when you know that I am so much more powerful and I can like destroy everything with the blink of an eye? Or like, he has some very cool lines, and like his text box is like very dark, and like you just know this guy is very evil because there's no voice acting in the game, unfortunately, but his character just comes across very well. Basically, he says, if you want to face me, I know you will not succeed, so I will like create this battlefield for us where we can fight to the death, and whoever reigns victorious will make it out alive. And basically, before you go in, you're warned. You're like, yeah, this place is like a land of nothingness, and if you go in, there's no coming back out. Are you ready for this? You go in, and it's like this endless like ocean place, right? And then you start fighting him, and this game is like motion control heavy. Your right Wii remote is your sword, your left nunchuck is your shield. And same like on the Switch, your right Joy-Con is your sword, your left Joy-Con is your shield. If you go like this, you raise your shield and you can do a parry or a shield bash. And every like movement you make with your like right hand like translates to what Link is doing. If you swipe like this or swipe like that, he'll do the same thing. And it's basically a one-on-one fight. Demise has no shield, but he has a massive sword, and he comes like crashing down on you like bam, 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 and you have to parry every single attack he does. So it's a very like it's like testing all your sword and shield skills you've learned throughout the entire game. Parry, and then attack him. And what's cool is at the end of the fight, like thunder comes like raining down onto the battlefield. And what you have to do is when the thunder comes down, you have to hold your sword up in the air, catch the lightning with your sword, and slash him with the lightning. And whoever gets it first gets the lightning. So if you get the lightning first, you can attack him with the lightning. But if he gets it first, he'll be patient, and he'll come out and stick out his sword. If you attack his sword, you'll get shocked. and then he'll like start attacking you with his sword, and then you'll gain some distance and unleash the lightning at you. So it's a very, very cool fight.
Sick. That is sick.
It's really cool. It's a very, very intense fight. The music is awesome, especially in the second half. Like the whole choir starts singing, and like the instruments start like going crazy, and you're like, this is the end of it all. The crazy, amazing, epic journey. And then you defeat him, and then he has some like I won't say what happens after that, but basically after you defeat him, it sets up the whole like course of the entire Legend of Zelda timeline and series, because Skyward Sword is the first game in the entirety of the timeline. So it's a very, very monumental fight in the entire series.
I can see how that is placed as your number one.
Yeah,
like especially with the motion controls. Like,
yeah,
it feels like pretty badass to actually be Link in that.
Yeah,
mode.
yeah. That's why I hold that game so dear to me, because it's a very, very unique game in terms of like the gameplay, the controls. The bosses are awesome, the dungeons are awesome, the music is amazing, the story is amazing, but it's a very different kind of Zelda experience. So I can understand why people may not like it as much. But yeah, dude, that's my
what a list.
That's my list. Yeah.
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 I'm pretty much like hooked by your list. I want to know more about your games, and I hope you feel the same about my
yeah
list.
Definitely. I can what I'm planning to do now is I'll make a YouTube playlist with all these boss videos, and I can share that to you, and you can
yeah, that would be great. You can make like two playlists, like Nishan's top 10, Shark's top 10, and
yeah,
that would be fun.
Yeah.